Well, the United States has just announced it's sending a few thousand more troops to the region to boost security. The US is also reportedly about to announce more than $300 million in funding for Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank. The US suspended its funding to UNRWA, the UN organization, after Israel proved that some of its workers took part in the massacres of October 7th. Well, the Biden administration has consistently called for de-escalation and ceasefires, linking Hezbollah's attacks on northern Israel to the war with Hamas in Gaza. But both President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris welcomed the killing of Nasrallah. We're here to talk about US strategy more broadly. We're joined by Jonathan Schanzer. He's a Senior Vice President for Research at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thanks very much for being with us, Jonathan. So what does the Biden administration want now from Israel, now that Hezbollah has all but collapsed under Israel's attacks, and now that we are on the eve of a possible Israeli ground incursion?
Well, the United States wants this all to go away. And this has been, I think, clear from the start from President Biden and from Vice President Harris. They would not like to have a major war going on in the Middle East as we head into an election here in about 1 month's time here in Washington. So what they're trying to do is to de-escalate. What I think has been missing on the part of this administration is that, sure, look, everybody would like to de-escalate, but the only way that happens is through deterrence. And that comes from the sorts of victories that Israel was able to notch in Lebanon, in Yemen, and even in the border between Iraq and Syria, the border between Lebanon and Syria. Israel has been striking near and far, taking out Iran-backed actors, taking out those various threats, thinning out the ranks of these terrorist groups, removing some of their capabilities, some of their more foreboding capabilities. All of these things, I think, need to keep happening until Iran begins to understand that it is losing its so-called ring of fire capability, that it is no longer going to be able to mount the kinds of attacks that it had planned heading into October 7th and over the year that has transpired. Israel reached a breaking point, and I think we saw what happens when Israel decides to go on the counteroffensive. That means weakness for Iran and its allies. That needs to continue until capitulation. That's how wars are won.
Well, Hezbollah collapsed far more quickly than anybody could have predicted. It's had a catastrophic fortnight. This is something that's been in the planning in Israel for many years. The Ayatollah of Iran has gone into hiding. Do you think it's a similar situation for Iran? Or should the US be stepping up the pressure now on Tehran?
Look, the U.S. should be stepping up diplomatic pressure, political pressure. We should be isolating the Iranians. We should be imposing sanctions. We should be putting a more aggressive force posture out there in the region. The Iranians need to feel the squeeze. Hezbollah needs to continue to suffer losses. Hamas needs to continue to suffer losses. The Houthis need to. This is how you get an end of conflict, is for the other side to simply give up. Now, I want to say up front here that Hezbollah is not done as a fighting force. They still have a massive amount of armaments. The big question is, can they use them without getting struck by the Israelis? We've seen a bunch of attacks just over the last couple of days. They have hammered Israel's north and even a little bit further south than we're used to. So they're still landing some blows. What Israel needs to do, though, is to not let up. They should not let Hezbollah get up off the mat. They need to really impress upon the entire region that Hezbollah's lifespan is shortened by a great extent here by what we've seen over the last couple of days. I think Israel still has a lot of capabilities still in store that it can use, and it needs the U.S. to give their blessing for these kinds of attacks. I think another couple of weeks of this, and Hezbollah might raise the white flag.
We had some interesting reactions to the killing of Nasrallah from the moderate Arab countries. Saudi Arabia not mentioning Nasrallah by name, saying they stand with the Lebanese civilians, which is exactly what the French are saying, interestingly. Do you think that the killing of Nasrallah moves Israel closer to a strategic agreement with Saudi Arabia?
Look, I think so. I mean, but actually, maybe not even Nasrallah. I mean, I think his death has resonated among the Saudi public. They have no love for this Shiite militia leader with so much blood on his hands. But I have to say, I think the Israelis taking out Houthi targets yesterday and striking, power stations and striking the Houthi airport and other assets belonging to this terrorist organization that had been targeting the Saudis for many years. I think that's resonating right now in Riyadh. And then you look around the rest of the region, I think there are a lot of people in Lebanon right now that are breathing a sigh of relief that Hezbollah's stranglehold on their country has been loosened. We've seen celebrations in places like Syria, where, of course, Nasrallah led the attack of Hezbollah, his militia, killing tens of thousands of Syrians. There's a large number of actors in the Middle East right now that I think are quite thankful for what Israel has done. The question now is, can the United States, can the West rally these actors, rally the rest of these Arab states to support what is going on here, to support the weakening of the axis of aggressors, as we would call it, the Shiite axis led by Iran. That is what is so important here. That actually could be consequential in trying to shape the final outcome of this conflict.
Jonathan, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Jonathan Schanzer there at the FDD.